of Iron. I'm Jon Andersen. Meet my co-hosts, Nick Best and Akeem Williams. We're going to have some amazing guests on the show. Buckle up tight, because we're going to be talking about the shit you're not supposed to be talking about. We're going to be discussing anything and everything it takes to become a Legend of Iron. Legends of Iron is brought to you by Muscle Mints. Muscle Mints is the creator of Carnivore Pure Beef Protein Icing. Beef builds muscle, and Carnivore is the world's #1 selling beef protein. Welcome to another edition of Legends of Iron. I'm Jon Andersen. With me always my partners in crime, Nick Best and Akeem Williams. I got to tell you, this might be my favorite introduction. This guy's one of my heroes, literally point blank. Not only my hero, Nick, too, but more importantly, arguably one of the best strongman competitors ever to walk the goddamn planet. I am very happy and proud to present Magnús Ver Magnússon. What is going down, my brother? Welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I got to say right out of the gate, and I was talking briefly to you before we got going here, I'm digging the hair. Oh, man, that's good shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's going on?
It kind of got started with, I was thinking of doing some like Viking commercials and stuff, and of course riding my bike. So that's how I started with it, and I just kept it since I did that, and did a lot of advertising with Asa Viking and all sorts of things like the Dodge Ram thing on I was on Super Bowl.
Yeah. Very cool, brother. Very cool. So let's go back to the start. I mean, you're one of the best strongmen ever walked the planet. You were also
smartest too.
Yeah, that's probably why, because you're so smart. I mean, well, I remember some of the tips you used to give me used to blow my mind, but that's a whole different show. But the interesting part, you came from a time from Iceland. Oh, of course.
Yes,
Unbelievably. But you came from a time in Iceland where you had one of your countrymen was one of the best too. So you guys, between the two of you guys, you have locked up like what, a decade of World's Strongest Man. Isn't that about right?
8 of them, yeah.
Pretty much, yeah. Actually, Jon Andersen was the one kind of that got me into this, and I learned a lot from him. Especially with training or training ethics.
Yeah. Well, there's a guy right there.
Pretty much just train more than anybody else.
Is that what it was? A lot of training? Can everybody hear me okay, out of curiosity?
Yeah, I can hear you.
We're good? Okay, beautiful.
Yeah.
Because that was one of the things, Maggie, that obviously, you and John Paul Sigmarsson, you guys were like, I mean, in terms of, you guys were like, you held down a decade worth of World's Strongest Man titles. He was kind of mentored you, correct? Tell us a little bit about training with him. He was quite a character,
Well, yeah, John Paul was a character. He was always lively and a lot of things going. But one of the things that I started as a powerlifter, and even before I met him, so the powerlifters that I was working with, they were talking about, well, John Paul, he's training wrong. He's training too much. He's doing this and that. But it all worked. So I picked up on that and I did a lot of digging, a lot of experiencing with my training and pretty much trained more than anybody else. I had a lot of training partners through my career, but I pretty much killed them all off.
I was going to say you had a lot of partners because nobody could hang with you, could they?
No.
I love it. I love
it.
So when
it was like, I remember, getting a question like the next day after doing legs. I got asked, is it normal to feel that I have a popsicle in my ass after that kind of training? I just said, yeah.
I love
So
it.
I'm like, oh, okay.
Poor guys can't move. They can't walk. They're walking funny.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love it. So, Magnus, you're basically like the top judge on the planet right now. So you're right in the mix of all the current, top strongman contests. But I would love to hear you kind of talk about the difference between the strongman today and the strongman back when. I remember you used to tell me some of the stuff that you'd show up to a contest, you didn't know what the events were. Compare that era to this era.
Well, you're absolutely right. A lot of the times, I didn't know the events. The first World's Strongest Man I went to, I didn't know the events. I just showed up. And like you probably know, I was not even supposed to compete. I was supposed to be an alternate. I was an equipment tester. So I kind of shocked everybody by winning it. But
you think?
At those times, at those times, it was pretty much like that. I would get off a plane. I would show up especially in Scotland. I remember with Big Douglas, and I would just ask, "Okay, what are we doing?" Sometimes I came straight from the airport, straight to the field, started competing.
Wow.
I would go to Finland to compete in a show. Everybody, all the Finns and all that, trained for a whole year for that particular show. They knew the events. I didn't even know the events. I didn't train the events. I still kick their ass.
You far and away were the best at looking at something and figuring out how to lift it. I mean, is that just a God-given talent that you have? I mean, is it just, how do you look at something and just know exactly how to lift it? Which is also what makes you a good judge, because you look at something and you know how to manipulate it and cheat in it, so you keep the other athletes, honest, going, nope, you can't do this, and nope, you can't do that. I mean, so explain that ability.
Well, I invented a lot of those tricks that are not allowed today. But yes, no, I think that has to do with, I'm a mechanic welder at trade. Also, I was like brought up on farms, and you learn how to work. You learn how to, instead of going the hard way, you learn how to figure out the way that to make things easier.
Yeah.
Or especially easier on you. You want to, you got a full day of work, and you want to make sure that you can do it, and the task that you're meant to do. I was 11 years old. I was driving the tractors. I was doing this and that, even the big trucks. I could reach to the pedals, so that was okay. But and I got used to. I was used to hard work, and hard work is something that just was bred in me. But being able to figure out how to do things, or how to lift that, or where to grab it, that came a lot of with that. And then with the mechanics and the welding and all that, you got to figure out things as well. So I believe that did help me a lot in just understanding the mechanism of things.
Yeah. I remember when I was in competing and you were the judge, everybody knew it was a bad day to try to cheat. because you were going to catch us. But what I figured out very quickly was everybody said, okay, no cheating. What I figured out, if I went and actually had a conversation with you about events, you would explain to me things that nobody else would see that were in the rules. So I found out a very secretive way to cheat, so to speak, which was, and I got to tell you, Maggie, in so many different situations, it made the difference between me placing high or not. I mean, so I personally thank you for the, you too, Nick?
Oh yeah, same. Big time. I look at Magnus. I mean, I've never picked up an Atlas stone, and you're like, well, you're gonna want to grab it like this. You're gonna want to put it here. You want to roll it into your lap. You want to come up and do this, and you're just like, okay, because like right at the start of my career, I didn't even touch Atlas stones, but like once before we went to Philadelphia that year. So Magnus's advice helped me get through that contest, and it was greatly appreciated. Several things actually.
So Magnus, you said you started off in powerlifting, and I remember right when we met. This would have been like the early 2000s. You'd obviously kind of semi-retired from strongman. I think you were doing exhibitions and things, but you were getting back into powerlifting. And I believe at that time, shortly after we met, you benched 300 kilos. Is that correct?
Something close to that.
Yeah, I remember over 600 pounds. And this is I remember thinking to myself, because maybe you're going for, but it was over 600 pounds. And I remember for the first time seeing you in person. And you're a big dude, but when you think of somebody benching 600 pounds, you think of like a big balloon, you know, the powerlifters. I thought, this guy knows something that I need to know.
So I think also genetically, I was gifted with a lot of fast muscle fibers, explosive power. And I used that. I knew that. And everything that I've trained and everything was done to work on that. My explosive power. It's like you've seen a lot of the Olympic lifters. They're unbelievable lifts. Weights they can move.
Wicked
and
fast.
That's one of the reasons. Like I said, I trained more than anybody else, and I had serious difficulties trying to put on weight. It did not matter. I ate everything I could get my hands on. And I still would lose weight sometimes.
Wow.
It was just,
really?
Like I said, I trained that much.
He had the perfect metabolism to be a bodybuilder.
I couldn't just gain that. I couldn't gain that much. I just got stronger.
Yeah.
And, I could lift heavier things. I got stronger. I got faster. But I didn't really gain size.
Yeah.
So back in that era when you were, trying to build, like, give us an idea when you're saying you're eating everything you can get your hands on. Obviously you're in Iceland too. So, the food there's a bit different than here in America, especially back in those days. Like what was the staple of your diet when you were pretty much ruling the world of strongman. What was your staple of your diet when you were running the top of the world?
Like I said, pretty much anything. But
like, were you eating lots of
carbs, proteins,
lots of carbs. Okay. Yeah. What was your favorite carb?
And I would eat a lot of rice, a lot of potatoes, and of course the meat. I didn't eat much bread, never have. But anything that, and I would do the carbs, drinks as well. I would do protein drinks all the time because I felt I couldn't get enough out of the food.
Yeah, sure. Just hard to get it down. You needed to drink some of it. Yeah.
But there's not a lot of beef on Iceland, though, is there? Because I remember when we visited in 2006, we were eating a lot of reindeer and stuff like that.
Yeah, you get this reindeer. We got a lot of lamb. Lamb is really nice here. But no, we got beef and everything else. But no, I've tasted lamb in other places. It's just not the same.
That's what I've heard. It's like a whole different. It's a whole different story over there. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we let them out when it comes spring. They just roam free in the mountains and everything, right? So they're not just eating grass or whatever; they're eating the berries. And that actually comes into the meat and gives it a way sweeter, better taste.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
It's all natural.
So you go to the supermarket, you get a rack of lamb from Iceland.
Oh, I would. Look, having been to, I went to Iceland. I loved it there. I had an absolute ball there. The food was great. I love soup and I love bread. The bread and soup there are just incredible.
Okay.
The meals do take a lot longer because you're supposed to sit and talk to people. So I remember our meals would take like an hour and a half to like get served all of our portions. But it was also very strange having the sun come up at like 9:30 in the morning and go down at 3:30 in the afternoon because we were there in November. But it was still amazing. I mean, it was absolutely amazing.
So the days are a lot shorter.
Oh, real short.
Yeah.
Real short. But we got to drive around the island. That was a lot of fun too. Getting the truck stuck in the beach was a lot of fun. I don't know if you were there with us when we got all those Toyotas stuck in the beach, and I almost ran over the Polish handler guy. I almost ran him over in the sand. That was pretty funny. I missed him by about that much. But I had a ball in Iceland.
We need to get you out from behind the wheel before you hurt somebody, Nick. Shit.
No. It was fun. It was all good fun.
So Maggie, when you were competing, Maggie, who were the guys that you really had to look out for? Like the top three guys that were always kind of giving you trouble. Who were those guys?
Rico Kiri, Harald Badenhorst.
He was strong.
Manfred Herbal.
Oh my. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Manfred had massive arms.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Manfred was not just big arms, he was a hell of an athlete.
Yeah.
And strong, he could press and he was good. Those were the main ones. There was others that kind of, dropped in there, but no, those were the main ones, I would think. Gary Taylor, of course, at some point.
Yep. Yeah. So what was it about?
A lot of good athletes.
What about Riku? What was it about him that I remember he was just so strong. What was he lacking technique? I mean, he was one of those guys that seemed like he should have won. Well, I guess if you weren't there, he may have.
Well, Rico is one of the strongest guys I've ever met, and a lot of the shows I would go to in Scandinavia and Europe or whatever, and he would be pretty much dominating. But for those shows, I didn't have any event training or anything like that. So all these other shows that I would do, appearances, shows, demonstrations, that was my event training. If I got my hands on some of the kit or in some of the other countries, I didn't have a set of Atlas stones. Never did all my career, but I still became the best in them. I'm not.
Yeah.
Wow.
So.
Wow.
And,
Maggie, hold on. That right there, that's a statistic that I bet most people don't know. You one of the best that ever walked the planet, and you never owned a set of Atlas stones. That's insane.
No.
Oh my God.
Not until I had retired from World's Strongest Man.
Oh wow, that's crazy. That's really crazy. So you didn't have. I guess let's ask a different question. Which events, which actual events did you have to train on, or were you just really showing up cold, not really training specifically for events?
No, but a lot of the things I would do, because a lot of times I didn't know what to expect, so I trained to be good in everything. I did all sorts of presses or whatever in the gym. A lot of it was to make things similar. I didn't have a log to train on, so I would just do standing military presses. I would do really high incline. I would do heavy dumbbell presses, standing. So that's also with cleaning the dumbbells, and so that was my training for logs and stones and stuff. I think that's one of the reasons because I was using the dumbbells so much and all sorts of stuff, trying to symbolize what I would be doing. I would be, when I would do my legs, I would do squats, I would do step ups, I would do leg presses for like 1 minute at a time. So that was like 25, 30 reps, leg raises and everything. Because what I was trying to do was build up my strength, but also building and working on my lactic acid built up later, not too fast, so I could keep going. See, a lot of the times, you've done, farmer's walk or whatever, right? It's not some. It wouldn't be the grit I would give in, not at least for me. It would be my legs would just stop working. I know you, Jon, had a problem with it, but no, it was for me.
That's my favorite event, so, especially in Iceland.
Yeah.
That was the first event I did.
I told Jon a trick to get better at the Farmers Walk Club.
And it worked very well. And I can even tell you right now what it was. Yeah. Because basically my forearms and my hands were going out so quick. So he told me, he said, look, you got to get those muscles relaxed. So before you pick up, squeeze your triceps, which is going to basically release your bicep and all those other muscles that are going on to your grip. And so that little torque of the tricep basically released all the pressure that didn't need to be in those muscles in the front of my arm. Made a huge difference. Huge. I just wish I'd had that piece of advice a few years earlier, so I could have perfected that technique. But
then also the training method for the farmers. So when I told you to, grab the farmers, walk until you drop him, pick him up, walk until you drop him again.
Yeah.
Strap on to the farmers, pick him up, and walk until you couldn't walk anymore.
Yeah.
How
your grip at that
feel?
point, that was brutal. And your grip, even though you got straps on, you should still barely hold on to the goddamn thing. Because your grip is so smoked, but then plus the overall, your body is just exhausted because all the oxygen is gone. So that's the piece of advice. I mean, Nick and I can attest the pieces of advice that Magnus has given to the current strongman is, it's invaluable, absolutely.
Oh, 100%.
So, yeah. So Maggie, what would you say if you were to, you can't include yourself in this one because you would be you definitely in this conversation. What are the other, not including yourself, the top 5 strongmen of all time, from current times all the way back into the beginning, minus yourself?
What are the best ones? In my opinion?
Yeah.
Cass, Big C, John Paul, Brian Shaw, and Poots.
Okay. Now give it to us 1 through 5 now.
No pressure. No pressure.
You trying to.
Who would be the top of them?
Yes. Who's number 1? Who's number 5?
Well, I've said that for years. Who's and I think is the if I take myself out of the equation, then it's Big C. Brian Shaw, Poots, Cass, Joe Paul.
Wow.
Okay. Now put yourself in. Who gets pulled out when you get put in?
Of course, number 5.
No, I've said this before. I believe that if it's me, Cass, or whatever, we would have all the if we would have been now having all the opportunities, all this stuff to train with, everything, all this special nutrition and everything that's done now, we'd be, doing nowadays, we'd still be kicking ass.
Yeah.
I'd agree with that. 100%. I mean,
But everybody is,
you're
you're a man of your error, your time, and if the bar is here, you'll step up to that bar. That's all you're chasing.
Yeah.
Right now, when things get better and athletes get better trained as strongmen, which we wasn't trained as strongmen. We wasn't specified as a strongman. I was pretty much a powerlifter, but I was, changing my training up and figuring out what would work or whatever. But no, definitely, I have no doubt that we would have stepped up our game.
Yeah. So in the top 5, where do you put yourself in the top 5 of all time?
Number 2.
Oh wow!
All right.
I was expecting to say number 1.
And and so who you giving number 1?
Big C.
Big Z. Okay. Wow. Well, when I did something similar to Big Z, talking to he was had you in this whole mix as well. So you guys were both honoring each other.
That's true.
So go back to we started talking about the comparison between the old times when you were in and then the current days, and we got segued. So you started telling us stories about how you wouldn't know the events, but what other talk to us about some of the other things that you see, because you're so involved right now. You see everything that's in the current state of strongman, and you also saw everything in the current state back when you were ruling the world. So talk to us more about the differences.
One of the differences is all the equipment is pretty much balanced nowadays. A lot of it is perfectly made, and I was lifting logs that would be heavy on one side and even bigger on one side or whatever. It was like and way longer. Like I said, we never knew what to expect. But everybody nowadays, like I said, we were just training. We were just training like a maniacs. A lot of the times, I think a lot of us didn't even know what we were doing. We were just going crazy on whatever. But nowadays, everybody has pretty much access to equipment, to Atlas stones, to logs, to the axle, to pretty much everything. And that has changed the game. I believe, there's a lot of, in many cases, there's bigger weights being moved. But that also comes with athletes are better prepared and they know what they're going to come up against.
So they could
instead of you're trying to be all around it and just be ready for anything. You can train for a contest and okay, this is the events, and I'm bad at this one, I don't have to train this one especially good. And I tell you the truth, a lot of the older stuff I miss. I miss that kind of wild factor about it.
That's what I was going to ask you. Do you think it took away from the sport in terms of the excitement, not knowing what the event is going to be?
No, I think the excitement is still there. But posting, what events are going to be 6 months or something like that before, it gives athletes the chance just to train on that. Which, in my time, it was like, I just got off a plane and I'm ready for anything. would that means I would be pulling a 500 kilo deadlift or something? No. But you know, with the deadlift, that's also changed with all these great deadlifting bars and the figure 8 straps, because you know there are too many strong guys with bad grip.
Yeah, there are. I'll agree there. I would like to see more grip events come back.
And all these, you know, real fucking, you know, suits that are almost stand by themselves. And,
Agreed.
Yeah.
You know, it's changed the game. Yeah, you know, guys are stronger. But give them a real powerlifting stiff bar on their grip, it changes game, changes the thing.
Yeah.
You know, one of the greatest feats of strength that I've seen, I still believe it, you know, in my eyes it was the 460 kilo deadlift done by Benny Magnússon in shorts and a t-shirt.
Wow.
On the grip.
Yeah, that's massive. Yeah.
You know, that was so impressive. You know, Eddie made history bringing things up to 500 kilos. There's no doubt about that. Eddie was the first man to pull it. And he'll go down in history for being the first man to do that. And it was, you know, when I was starting in this, you know, the heaviest deadlift in the world was about 420, if I remember right, something like that, or even
Gary
less.
Heisey. Yeah, Gary Heisey pulled 925. So yeah, about 420.
Yeah. So, but again, you know, that was done on a stiffer bar, on your grip. You know, those deadlift bars, wow, you know, they make the deadlift come alive.
Yeah.
It's not a deadlift, you know, a dead lift anymore. It's alive.
Yeah. It's a live lift. Yeah.
Yeah. And it changes the whole lift, changes the game.
Yeah. And this, you know, this kind of stuff right here that we're talking about, I don't think that most people that are currently watching Strongman truly understand the difference between what they're seeing. So you explaining this really helps them see the difference in the eras, you know, because all these things you're talking about are so true, but not recognized by the masses. So, I mean, what other elements can you talk about to help people understand the difference between the eras? This is good stuff, Maggie.
Well, people would understand this now. They know the difference in pulling a deadlift with an axle, or a deadlift bar. There's a huge difference.
Massive.
And that's pretty much how the stiff, you know, bar was in the lifting, in the powerlifting. It was only one bar throughout the whole contest. That's how it used to be.
Yep. I remember that. Remember that well. kind of missed that, actually, to be quite honest with you. But
you
like
know,
in
it's
2017,
an evolution of the sport. You know, everything changes, everything evolves, and some of those bars are just unreal. You know, I can even still pull a good deadlift on a deadlifting bar.
Maggie, I think you're going to be able to pull a good deadlift until you die one day. That's just in your blood, you know. So thinking back,
I've taken a lot of weight off now, and you know, getting older. There's no need to be too heavy and be carrying that around.
Right.
So I'm down to like 112 kilos. Trying to be fit. You know, still got.
There you go.
But Maggie, what you have, Maggie, is you always had it. You got it right here. This is the difference. You got it right here. When was it? It was a. Forgive me. I don't remember the show, but you got in and did the Hercules hold. You and Kaz did it together, and you held that thing you were in there for a long time. And poor Kaz only held it for like 7 seconds or something. But but I mean, that just showed you still got it, brother. I mean, that was a heavy Hercules hold.
Well, I wanted to pull full weight. I wanted to see where I would stand against the competitors there, but they insisted on making it slightly lighter. And I just proved them that I was right. I should have had the full weight.
Mm-hmm.
How long did you hold it? It was a long time. I remember sitting there watching going, holy shit, he's just going to choose to let go, I think.
I did let go after 1 minute 40 something.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It was a long time. Hell, I could have gone to the refrigerator, taken a dump, and come back. You'd have still been there holding that thing.
Yeah, well, maybe I should have played it smart and dropped it, just before the world record. But then I wouldn't have told anybody it was slightly lighter.
I love it.
But it's the funny thing is, I got up there, I got the weight, I couldn't feel it. Then I felt a little balance, just got the balance right, and the atmosphere in well, Nick, you've been to Giants live shows.
Yeah,
the atmosphere, and we were at.
The energy just blows the roof off of it.
Yeah, and everything
crazy.
goes with it. And I'm like, and I just started, I didn't know times, or I didn't hear anything. I was just like going with the flow. And I was enjoying every second of it. I wasn't enjoying it so much for a couple of days after, but...
Oh, that's funny. So, Maggie, you've been around strongmen for decades and decades. What would you say who would you say the top 3 just craziest motherfucking strongmen you've ever met?
Well, I think Nathan Jones would be one of them. He was just nuts. I don't know. Most of these guys, have gotten along with fine, and some of them more like more wilder than the others.
Yeah.
But,
I'll say there's quite a few that are pretty wild.
Johnny Perry, he could get pretty wild as well.
Yeah. Okay. Here we go.
Yeah.
Give us one more.
There was this British guy. Can't remember him. I think his name was Paul Lupton or something like that. So he was slightly shorter than us. I can tell you this funny story. This was about, Big Doogie. So we're at the show, and we're doing a wheelbarrow. And on the wheelbarrow, there are, you could move the handles a little bit. So this guy is asking for the handles to be moved a little bit lower so he could. But Big Doogie said, "No, I'm not moving the handles. You just have to grow a little bit." And made him go, and he was like plying the whole way, like just lines in the grass.
That's good stuff. So, what would you say that you just told us about one of the best strengths of feats of strength you ever saw? Benny Magnússon doing that deadlift just with shorts and a t-shirt. Yeah. Give us some of the other in competition. Some of the things that you just can't believe that you saw. You've probably been to more high-level competitions than any other person on the planet. Between your own competitive career and judging, you've witnessed more high-level strongman contests than probably anybody else on the planet.
Well, one of the there's always something that pops up that suddenly somebody just blows your mind.
Yeah.
And I think one of the moments I remember is at the Arnold's when Poundstone just kept repping and repping that dumbbell.
The first
he just
time?
raised the bar. Yeah, first he just raised the bar
Yeah.
with that dumbbell.
I think I was there for that one.
We got to make it heavier and heavier and heavier.
Because he did what, 11 that year? I think he did 11.
It was just crazy.
Yeah, I remember that. I zeroed it, and then he did 11. I was like, wow. Sitting there just, that was just crazy. And I remember looking at Dr. Todd because I was by Dr. Todd when he did that, and he's like, "It's just gonna have to be heavy next year. That's way too many reps." And there was only one other guy that got maybe more than 5 in the competition. It was just that big of a disparity that year. So, but he was very upset.
One of the biggest feats of strength was Eddie pulling that 500.
That was pretty groundbreaking. I mean, it's history.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Who do you think your 3 biggest overachievers are in the sport? Maybe not necessarily winners, but people that overachieved what their ability was.
Great question, Nick. Great question.
That,
Jesus, Nick.
Like really shouldn't have done what they did, but they still managed to do it anyway.
You mean come out of nowhere to do something that you're not expecting them to do?
Come out of nowhere, but just overexceeded their genetic ability too. Just really just overachievers.
Joko Ahola.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah.
Yep.
Joko was, well, I was never one of the biggest guys, whatever,
I was going to say, you can put yourself in that list too, Maggie, for sure. I mean,
I would never have thought that somebody even lighter and kind of, smaller than me would be able to pull that off. But yeah, he did it. And he reminded me that I told him, well, you have to win it once more just to prove that you were not lucky. And so he did.
Wow.
Yep.
Well, that was kind of, that was the word was going on. But after I won my first one, it's like, well, he was lucky. Jamie Reeves wasn't there. John Paul wasn't there, and this and that. So I figured I had to win a few more. So I won 3 in a row. Just to prove a point.
There we go. Yeah. No, that's, I mean, we all know how difficult it is to win something like this, let alone consecutive years in a row, and you were knocking them up and you were lining them up and knocking them down, Magnus. It was pretty crazy, What were the years that were the 3 consecutive years? I don't remember.
94, 95, 96.
There we go. I was just I remember those years, I was just buried in the gym, just trying to squat big and trying to do. I remember watching this stuff on TV, and just then all of a sudden, next thing you know, like, holy shit, I'm actually strong enough to do some of this stuff. It's just kind of crazy how. Well, I remember watching guys like you, especially you, was just so inspiring to work harder. Because here's a guy like you said. I mean, look at you put them all on the line. And you look kind of like one of the average ones, but you would outperform everybody so drastically. It just didn't make sense, And
yeah, when there's a lot of times I've heard that. Magnus wasn't really that strong. But he was really fast and this and that. Well,
yeah, that's not strong.
Looking at the 4 wins.
Yeah,
that's that strong.
Yeah. First or second. Overheads. First, second. Can't remember if I was third at one point. I'm not sure though. Squat. First. Every time. So here you have the basic kind of power things in strongman. So how was I only fast on my feet? But I had that as well.
Yeah, I wouldn't have agreed with anybody said that you weren't strong. They just weren't watching. They weren't fucking watching very closely. You know, I think the thing that
I think it's the fact that he did it so effortlessly. Maybe that's why, you know, it didn't look like he put a lot of effort into doing it. Because I remember watching you on TV and some of the stuff that you would do, you have other guys struggling to do it, and then you would just come up and step up to the podium and just do it with no problem. So I think that's one of the reasons why somebody could get misguided and thinking like, well, maybe he wasn't that strong because it was so easy for you to do it.
Well, I would go behind and hide behind the tree if I can throw up. But a lot of times, but I didn't want to show anybody that.
Yeah.
It was, you know, it was more intimidating. It was, you know, you gotta. It's like you're in a battle. You know, you want to strike fear in your opponent's heart. And so, yeah, of course, you play it like you know, this is nothing.
the mental warfare.
Yeah.
Well, another thing too is, especially once I got to know you when I was competing, I realized that you saw everything better than everybody else. You recognize, just like when you're talking about being on the farm, you learn to figure out the most efficient way to do a task. And that carried into the sport. And that was something that was just, I mean, even the announcers would be like, oh, look at this. He's doing it this way. Nobody else has done it, but you were the one that had figured out the most efficient way to do it, you know? So strong, fast, and the smartest motherfucker on the field. What do you expect?
I didn't do many mistakes. I did one mistake that costed me a title. It should have been 5.
Tell us about that.
So, but you know, it is what it is. I never watched that show. Never watched those tapes.
Really?
Because I was just, I was pissed off with myself. But you know, it's just one of these things. Well, you know, it was the final event. It was in my home ground. It was the Húsafelstone. And you know, I got the advice from like John Paul or whatever, you know, just pick it up high, and you know, he had done that in a show and kind of danced with it or whatever. So pick it up high, and I fucking, you know, it was light, and I picked it up high, grabbed my hands even around it, and start going. As soon just a little while, I'm realizing, well, I fucking can't see where I'm going. And and I realized, okay, I put it too high on my chest. It's really affecting my breathing. It's heavy on my chest. So, and I keep going, and I'm trying to look to the side, you know, when I'm going or whatever. And then I decided to stop, and I was going to try to slide it down slightly. But I was wearing my powerlifting belt, and it didn't slide down. It kind of got stuck on the belt and fell forward. And so Ted Van den Parra was like almost, he was lucky he was that tall, because otherwise, you know, he would be dragging it on the ground. But, you know, he managed just to go over my mark. And I never ever, after that, walked such a short distance with the Húsafelstone.
Well, I remember you giving me advice with a stone. You said, look, pick this thing up high, keep it off your belt, let them see it's not touching your belt, and as you go, let it come down and settle on that thing. That might have been one of the best pieces of advice I ever got. Because once they recognize it wasn't on the belt and you could see they weren't looking, you let it go, and just barely touches the belt, changes everything. You can actually let it fall forward a little bit. You can breathe. I remember that right there, amongst probably another 30 or 40 other great pieces of advice, probably allowed me to stay an international player So thank you, Magnus.
Well, if there was a trick, I would know it. But yeah.
Yeah. So, Magnus, you're such a staple of the sport, and people look at you. You're an icon in the sport. There's no question about it. So many people look at what you've done and try to follow in your footsteps. You must have countless people in Iceland, young athletes that look to you for advice. What advice do you give these young up and comers?
Well, my favorite, I do a lot of speakings or talking about training or seminars or stuff like that. So my main thing is always train more than anybody else, but train smart. So do more sets. You don't have to go to comp weight in your training. Train a little bit lighter, because when it comes to the comp, you don't feel a difference. Train a little bit lighter, do more sets, do more work, put in all the work, and don't go to failure. Like, let's say you're bench pressing and you can feel, I might have another rep. If you're not sure you have it, don't try it. If you're sure of, I got another rep, yeah. But if you're in doubt, don't do it. So don't go to failures. Never fail in your training, or try not to. It will happen, but try not to do failures. Now, how many people do, they do 5 sets of 5 or something like that. And they usually go to a certain weight. Let's say they put 300 pounds on, and they do that 5 sets, 5 reps. To me, that's wrong. Because you should go, if you go into 300, you should go 2 sets, maybe 310. And then when it gets, you feel it getting harder, lower the weight slightly and lower the weight slightly. So all your sets, you're working your maximum instead of just the 2 last sets getting heavy. This way, every set will give you more results. So don't marry the weight. Just mess with things. A lot of which was done in powerlifting was like people would do their training regimen on like a weekly basis. This day I'm doing that day I'm doing that, right? I would do it in 2 weeks. So every time I'm changing things up, and then after 2 weeks I can do the same thing again.
So rotate around, okay.
Why? Because you're always hitting your body, because your body will feel like, oh, this is something new. So you're always surprising it by that. If you're always doing things like weekly basis, it kind of gets used to that kind of movement. So just mix it up all the time. And that's how you get better results. And like I said, you don't need to overdo your training. You don't need to. If you overdo, you go to failures. You get into that, and you'll get overtrained. You get sore, and you get injured. So I know it's a fine line, but stay under it. That's the best advice I can give anybody.
Question. You said, like, don't train at the competition weight, like all the weeks going up to it. How much less would you train with than the competition weight? So if you say if the yoke was 800 pounds, what would your training weight on that be? So people have a better idea.
750.
Okay, so like 50, 60 pounds less.
Yeah.
Because you did make the comment, you won't notice the difference, but your training will be better. So it's about somewhere between 50 and 60 pounds less than the actual competition weight. You won't notice the difference. Okay, that makes sense.
So that would be probably
you fire like 7 when you're competing, and
Yeah. So
Yeah.
like 7%, not quite 10% would be what you're speaking of, Maggie. Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes perfect that makes perfect sense. Because in a competition, everything, you're so fired up, things feel lighter in a competition.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
In my time, we used to do a lot of like front hold, like a battery hold or something like that. So usually it was like 25 kilos at that time, right? I would train with 20 kilos
Yeah.
because I wanted to hold it for a longer time and build up my lactic acid tolerance as well. When you got the 5 kilos more in the competition, you didn't feel the difference. You would hold that as long as you would do with the 20.
Yeah. Now these are great pieces of advice for those of you guys who are coming up. Oh my Lord. Yeah. What about in terms of how many days a week would you train? Like now, people have their own theory on do you train events 1 day per week? Do you train them 2 days per week? What would you, for someone that has access to event training, how often would you recommend they train with the actual specific events?
Well, I would recommend that if you have access to, if it's both there, for example, if you have access to everything, right? Now, if you have a special place for your event training, of course you have to do that on a separate day. But what I would do if it was my choice, I would do my normal kind of workout and then step into the event training from that. So you come into the event training slightly tired, but all warmed up and everything. And and you'll go through that. Now, I know a lot of strongman athletes today. They do way more event training, and that's understandable because that's what you're competing in. But you cannot discard the fundamental like a squat, like a normal deadlift, but there's also variations of deadlifts. But those kind of things that build your base, if you don't have a strong legs, there will always come an event that finds your weakness if you have a weakness. And so the main thing is train everything, be ready for everything, and don't have any weaknesses.
That's much easier said than done, I would say.
Some people have a grip as a weakness. Some people have pressing as a weakness, or
that would be me. I fully admit that.
Yeah, but if you look at the previous winners or whatever, it's pretty much don't have a weakness.
Yeah. A lot of times you see the winners, they're not always winning every event. They're just in the top few. They're always in second or third the whole day, and then at the end they're 10 points ahead.
Well, for example, Mark Felix. I've seen Mark do some unbelievable things. How he can run with the super yoke, for example, or he did that at the Worlds. But it's always his overhead that lets him down. And that in a tough contest or a show, if you have a weakness or a bad event, whatever, it always costs you too much points.
Yeah.
So to become a winner in strongman, if you have a weakness, work on your weakness more than anything else. See, a lot of people, they do the mistake of working on the things they're good at. and their weakness, they don't put enough work into it because they think, well, I'm weak at it anyway. So, but one of Thor's weaknesses was overhead, and he was starting out, and I made him work on it, bust his ass. I did some things. I made him do some things in training that in half an hour later he was still laying on the floor. Yeah, he could, he got his, I remember this one thing I was doing. It was all sorts of cardio, whatever I was doing, making him do. And he was laying there. I walked by half an hour later, he was still there. And apparently he managed to get home. He fell into bed in all of his clothes. He slept in all of his clothes because he didn't have energy to take them off. But, this is what separates him. But he came back the next day asking for more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the sign of a champion right there.
No.
Absolutely.
Thor's a lot of fun to train with too, because he'll attack everything with that type of enthusiasm. And even when he gets mad at something, like I have one of the IFSA shields here at the house.
Oh.
And he came over to train once, and we pulled that thing out. And thanks to you and Ode, I figured out how to pick that thing up pretty easily. So I can pick it, set it, grab it. I'm comfortable with that thing. And he just couldn't figure out how to get his hands around it. And eventually he did, but I mean, it took a while, but man, he just came after that. But that was after he was pulling sets of 5 with like 765 in the garage, like it was nothing. And then we did that. But yeah, he's a lot of fun to train with. He's got that drive. He'll push himself to the very end and collapse, but he will come back the next day like there's nothing happened.
Yeah.
So it was really kind of neat to train with, to experience that.
Magnus, how long do you think it's going to be before there's another Icelander that's the world's strongest man?
Well, I don't know. The bar has been set high. I got some, good new young upcoming guys. You can't not exactly say where they're gonna go, but if they start gaining and getting stronger on a decent speed with it, there might be some of them. We got guys that have the potential. Are they going to get there? That's the question.
Yeah. So you're making sure that you take all your wisdom and you're handing it down to the youngsters on the island of Iceland to make sure that you keep strength, the Iceland at the top of the strength game. It sounds like. Yeah. How many young guys are you training over there?
Well, I don't know. I got pretty much all of them training in the gym. So, yeah. I don't know how many guys I have right now doing that. 20.
Oh, wow.
Good
That's
amount.
Cool.
I got one guy that's even taller than Thor.
Really?
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. He's already 170 kilos. So,
Wow.
but, he needs to, when he gets more, pure strength and see where he goes. Like I said, it's too early to say how far people can go take things.
Yeah.
It all depends on how well your body adapts to training.
Yeah.
I've known people that have trained all their life and they've never gotten anywhere with it, really.
Mm-hmm.
They're still moving the same weights as they did 20 years ago. But they hadn't, they haven't gone any further.
The only thing that changes is the color of their hair. Oh, I love it.
Or they just don't
in
have
my
it anymore.
case, it's like, getting stronger or came pretty easy in that sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Very cool. So, well, Megan, we've had you on here for over an hour. I know it's way past your bedtime. If I was up as late as you are, I don't know, I would keep my eyes open. But I got one more question for you before we wrap this up. And we could keep you on here for hours. So we're going to have you come back for another show. So we'll keep it right at an hour. But the last question I have for you, if you could get in a time machine and you could basically go back in your life as you are today and give your younger self a piece of advice, how old were you? How old would the younger version of you be, and what would you tell yourself?
Don't adjust that Husafellstone.
I knew he was going to say that.
That's awesome.
Oh, that's perfect. I mean, if that's not the perfect answer to wrap up the show, I don't know what is, man. That was good stuff, Maggie. That was funny as hell. You leaned in like that, and I was like, oh, God, what's he going to say? Oh, I love it. Well, Magnus, I got to tell you, I am totally digging the long hair. I'm jealous. As you can see, as you said before the show, you're growing it out before you end up looking like me.
Well, I had it a bit long when I was younger, like around 20 or something. But I was like, well, I might as just do this, before it disappears.
That's it.
Like you guys should.
That's it. I love it. Well, we're going to wrap up Magnús Ver Magnússon Part 1. So that being said, Nick, you got anything for Maggie before we let him go to sleep? We kept him up way past his bedtime.
Nah, man, it's just been a pleasure, talking to you and just getting all the knowledge that you have, and nothing but continued success, and keep growing that hair out.
I just thank you for coming on the show. We really appreciate it. I can't wait to have you on again, and I'm looking forward to see it at some point this year. Are you coming out to OSG?
I'm coming out for the Rogue Invitational.
Okay.
Then I'm in Miami for the Ragnarok Games.
Oh, cool.
With the Arnolds, which is the weekend after in it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Well, cool. Well, hopefully I get to see you. I miss you, man. It's fun. It's always fun.
And I might be coming over in December and staying for a few weeks.
Okay.
Well, there you go. Right on.
All right.
Right on.
Well, I just recently got divorced, and so
time to have some fun.
I got a new girlfriend, so I got to go over and see her.
I love it. Well, Magnús, you've been a hero to me from the time I started lifting weights and watching you on TV. I've always cherished all the conversations we've had and all the advice you've given me, and you've given me so much inspiration throughout my days of lifting. So I personally can't thank you enough for just what you've done and what you mean to everybody that's lifted weights. So, brother, thank you very much, and really appreciate you coming on the show. Can't wait to have you coming back on the show. And there you have it, everyone. There is another edition of Legends of Iron. We're talking to the great, and I mean the great Magnús Ver Magnússon. If he can't give you some pearls of advice to help you become the best version of yourself, I don't know who can do it. That being said, thank you for listening, everyone. We will see you next time.
Legends of Iron is brought to you by Muscle Mix. It's time to stop around. You want to build some muscle? You want to build some serious muscle? Well, guess what? Beef builds muscle. RTD, carnivore, ready to drink. Lactose free, tastes great. You want to build some muscle? You better start eating some beef.
Beef up with Carnivore RTD. 40 grams of protein, 0 fat, 0 sugar, 0 lactose. What the are you waiting for? Get yours today.